Are you thinking about selling your home but not sure if now's the right time? Is it a terrible time to actually try to purchase a home in today's current market conditions? It's a fair question, and one that I'm sure is on a lot of people's minds. Whether you're relocating, you're downsizing, or maybe you're upsizing and wanting to trade up to a bigger and better property, it can be confusing out there with all the news about how the market is, what prices are doing, and how many homes are actually on the market. I'm Dustin Witten. I'm a local real estate agent here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I spend a portion of every day looking at market trends, pricing shifts, and talking to my preferred partners about what they're seeing in the market to be able to gather all that information and give my clients better data to make smarter decisions and smarter moves. Today, I'm going to try to answer the big question: is it a good time to make a move? I'm going to be speaking specifically about the Nashville area, but some of these trends that we'll talk about can be seen across the nation. So even if you're not local, stay tuned, because these could help you understand your market where you are, and or help you talk to your local real estate agent or local real estate expert about what's going on and how to navigate your specific condition. Here's a couple of things that we'll cover today. We'll look at a few key metrics you should be paying attention to, some situations where now may actually be a smart time to make a move, and then some other situations that if you're in, might be better to stay put or hold on to see what the market does. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it and start breaking it down. I like to look at the median and the average home prices when I'm looking at pricing trends because they tell kind of different stories. The median price is going to be the middle price. There's going to be half of all the prices are lower and half of all the prices are higher. But that kind of tells you what the typical buyer is spending their money on. The average price can tell you a good idea of what the average person is spending on, but it also can be skewed by higher price investment properties that are outliers, meaning they're not the norm, and it can be a little misleading if you're not also factoring in the median price and where the middle ground is. A good example of why it's important to look at both numbers is because of what we see in Nashville right now. So for June, the median sale price was $525,000. The average sales price was $758,000. If you only ever looked at the average, you would think that homes were selling way and far above what they are. And some are, and that is true, because downtown Nashville has several, many luxury properties that probably sell in the upper six figures to some in the seven figures. And that's great, but that doesn't tell the whole story. When you look at both of them together, you can kind of see where the data might be a little bit misleading. Likewise, you can see that in Sumner County, which is directly north of Nashville, you have a median sales price of $465,000. Robertson County, $375,000, and Wilson County, about $550,000. So with that being said, those are a little bit closer to their respective averages, but you can see that in Robertson County, we've got more affordability for lower priced homes, and with Wilson County, has probably the most expensive homes, probably out in the Lebanon and Mount Juliet area. Those homes are going usually towards a more premium price than, let's say, in Robertson County with the White House area. Let's take a look at this graph that shows price trends from last year, June of 2024, to now, June of 2025 in the Nashville area. What we can see when we look at the average prices and the median prices is that pricing remains fairly strong, and that's important, because what we're not seeing is a dramatic crash where prices are going down, inventory is skyrocketing, and where there's just so much on the market that nobody can sell, and buyers are afraid to buy. That's not what we're seeing in Nashville. Prices are actually going up a little bit in some of the areas, or remaining relatively consistent with the same time last year. And that's an important metric to consider when you hear all this noise about there being a crash. But where we are right now, it seems to be still in a good spot, and that's just based on the data that we can see here. The next statistic that I'd like to talk about is inventory and days on market. So what we're seeing right now is a little bit of increase in inventory. So it's not to like the crashing levels that we're talking about, but right now we are creeping more towards a buyer's market where we have been in a seller's market for quite some time. When you wanted to sell your house, you had in previous years multiple buyers that wanted to make an offer on it because there just wasn't enough houses on the market to satisfy the buyers that were out there. What we're seeing now is more inventory so that there are fewer buyers out there looking for homes. So it's kind of the opposite, which is not the greatest thing when it comes to what, for sellers necessarily. However, we're not in a dire situation yet. We are not fully in what is considered a buyer's market. The inventories levels are not that high, but we're seeing a small shift in that direction right now. If you're selling, you may see a higher days on market, meaning your house may take a little bit longer to sell. The best thing to do to counteract that is to be realistic about your listing price. I think every agent would want the house to sell quickly, but it's important to look at all of the data around it and make a really educated decision on where you're going to start the listing price. Remember, when you're pricing a property, it's not about what you want to get for it. It's about what the market is demanding and what it will actually sell for. It's important in this type of market to really price it where it's a value proposition rather than just starting high and hoping to come down, because you're not going to get the attention that your property deserves because there's so many other prices that are coming down and people are having to reduce their prices to keep up with the market and what it's telling them. And so right now we're seeing days on market creep up a little bit. The inventory is a little higher, so you really need to be aggressive when you're pricing your property to make sure that buyers come and see it first and they want to make a deal. The other consideration for this is that when you're on the buying side and you're looking for a property, there are deals to be made. And it's not always a price drop that you're looking for. It's important to consider seller concessions, meaning negotiating on credits towards closing costs, towards rate buy downs, which we'll talk about in just a minute with interest rates, and other credits that the house may not be the perfect thing, but there's negotiating room because of how the market is. Sellers, be aware of this so that you don't get offended when somebody's asking for some extra money at closing to make up for what they feel is a value discrepancy. Now let's talk a little bit about interest rates. Yes, interest rates are higher than normal. The main thing that I hear when talking to people about whether they want to buy another property at this point is the interest rates. And the interest rates can play a big factor, but it's not the only factor in what goes into a purchase. Interest rates at this point, to be realistic, when we're looking at historical data, are not above and way outside of what to be expected. They're actually pretty average. We got really lucky and had a really good time right around COVID and right after COVID, where we're in this condition where we're having 2%, 3% interest rates, and people thought that that was the new normal. Unfortunately, that's just not sustainable with the amount of inventory that we have in the current market conditions with inflation, which means the interest rates had to go up to slow the buying process down and give the market some time to breathe. The important thing to consider here is that there is no one interest rate. Depending on what you can negotiate and how much you want to put towards buying a rate down, a lender has many different rates to offer you that cost varying amounts. So it's important to know that there's no one interest rate that somebody's going to be paying. It is possible to buy down an interest rate and get it lower to decrease your payment. It's also possible to get a higher interest rate and get money back at closing. So it really depends on your actual situation, what your goals are. It's important not to just think about one thing as far as interest rates go, but they are important, and it's important to have a discussion with your real estate professional about how they affect your ability to buy and what that means for your situation. So now it's time to kind of wrap all this up and talk about the answer to the big question. Who should really be buying and selling in this type of market? Well, the market is ripe for people who have a lot of equity in their homes, and they are able to put some of that money that they make from selling their homes into their next home to be able to increase their purchase power. These people ideally have a pretty stable income that has probably increased from the first time they bought, and they've probably owned their home for more than 3 to 4 years. So really, from right around COVID time, if you bought in that time or before, then you're probably in good shape to be able to make another move with your property, because you probably have taken advantage of the vast increase in property values and are able to cash in on some of that equity. Likewise, the people who are buyers either are first-time home buyers that have a steady income and are able to make the payments on a new property, or the people that are selling and then buying new properties. So those are the ideal candidates. I would say that you have to keep in mind that there are transactions that happen every day. People have to relocate, and if you are flexible on where you can live, then there are options out there for you. Okay, it may not be in downtown Nashville or in a downtown area, but if you're willing to go out a little bit farther, or you're willing to, not have the biggest house to start out with, there's definitely options out there for you. There's deals to be had in this market. Make no mistake, it is a tougher market, like I said, but that for the buying side gives you more options to look at when you go and try to purchase a home. On the flip side, here's who might like to wait to see what the market does. There's really two categories here. One, if you're already locked in at a low interest rate, you're not going to be able to really find a lower payment or a lower interest rate to get you in a new home. If you're comfortable with that payment and can't really go up, it might be best to stay put at this point to see if interest rates come down any or home prices come down. Likewise, if you are really stretched thin on your budget and don't have a lot of wiggle room, it might not be the best market for you. That doesn't mean that first-time homebuyers can't get in with special loan programs, but it really just depends on your current situation. And it's important to speak with somebody, aka a loan professional, a mortgage professional, or a real estate agent, to try and get a good idea of what your picture is, and then they can give you some honest advice about where you should be and how to achieve the goals that you have. I like to think of things in a way that it's not that I can't do something, but it's how can I do something. And there's usually always a way. It may not happen on the timeline that's ideal for you, but if your real estate agent and your loan officer are on top of things, they can make it happen on something that's actually realistic. So, to answer the big question, is now the right time to make a move? Well, I think the honest answer is it depends. It really depends on each person's situation, how much equity they have in their home, what their budget is, what they can afford, what their credit score is. I mean, the list goes on. And there's no one-size-fits-all answer that I can give in good faith today. But I have outlined some things that I hope that you found helpful, the criteria that maybe have a better shot at a really good deal and can make a really good deal in this market, and some people that may still be able to work but might need to be more cautious about where they're spending their money and when they're making their move, and maybe trying to wait and see what the market does. So if you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. Consult your real estate professional, and if you'd like that real estate professional to be me, I'd be honored. Please let me know. My contact's in the description below. If you found value in this video, I'd appreciate a like, a share, and subscribe. And I've got more content coming, so please stay tuned, especially if you are local to the Middle Tennessee area. It'll be more kind of curated towards our home here. So with that, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.